Welcome to the Wellness Amazon podcast. This is a podcast for highly sensitive people, people that have high intuition and are just in tune with themselves and the outer world. Come and listen to multiple different high spectrum subjects and just peek behind the curtain. But I warn you, once you peek behind the curtain, you can never go back. Have fun. Enjoy. Welcome, everybody, to a new episode of the Wellness Amazon podcast with another super special guest today, Audrey Newmont. And Audrey is a multifaceted figure in personal development and holistic health with over 30 years of experience in hypnotherapy, spirituality, and life coaching. She's the co-founder of the Newmont Center for Balanced Living with her husband, Nick, and she helps individuals enhance the 4 pillars of life: love, health, success, and joy. She shares her insights through her podcast, blogs, vlogs, including the Conscious Mind Tripping vlog. And we're going to link all of this in the show notes so people can find you. She offers both in-person and virtual sessions to make her guidance accessible to everybody. She's also an author, and her book is called The Mind Trip Game, as it serves as a practical guide for self-improvement. And we love practical. Through workshops and public speaking, she aims to promote a greater understanding of mental and spiritual health, making holistic living more mainstream. We need more people like that on this planet. Audrey, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's lovely talking with you.
Yeah, it's so much that you do. And when I first heard conscious mind tripping, I fell in love with just the term because I thought conscious, yes, we want to do things consciously. And then mind tripping. Yes, we want that too. I'm not quite sure yet, right? We're going to dive into it, but it just sounds very appealing, very appealing to me.
I think it's necessary at this point. There's a lot of unconscious tripping going on. So it's like, how do you do that? And it's a whole process to be consciously mind tripping.
Yeah. Let's dive in. Tell us a little bit about, so 2 things. What's hypnotherapy and what is conscious mind tripping?
So hypnotherapy, we have these different areas of our mind. And the largest area of the mind is the unconscious. It's a subconscious part of your mind. So when my clients are coming in and we're learning about the mind is like the controller of who you are. So your mind is the thing, like if you were to have like a controller of you, it's that. So when you're looking at the largest portion of what goes on in your controller, most of it for most people is you're unaware that you're unaware. You're unconscious. So when we're doing hypnotherapy, for me personally as a hypnotherapist, I teach people about their mind because we don't learn this stuff in school. So I show them how we take on the programs of our mind from like 0 to 8 years old. Everybody comes in and we're all in hypnosis. So when we're learning everything, it's kind of like when you're looking at the car analogy that I have in my book, we're all in the back seat of our parents' cars and we're just watching how they drive. They don't even need to say anything. We watch how we be in love. We watch how we communicate. We also are learning who we are by what the parent is saying to the kids in the back seat. So as I'm showing the people what their mind does, and I'm showing them in that 0 to 8 how we take on the programs of who we are, I use myself as an example. And my mother, when I was in that age, she had her own beliefs around little girls and boys and how people were. And she took on a belief about me that I was stupid. And I have it in letters and it's in my book where she would say, yeah, she's cute, but she's not that smart. And she'd call me the dumb one. And so children don't know any different. We just do what we do. So I took on a program in the subconscious that I was stupid, cute sometimes, but not that bright. And it took a very long time and a lot of unfortunate situations and lot of learning. And finally, one day I was studying this guy, Greg Braden, and I was reading his book, and he was explaining what intelligence was. And this is after I had become myself a hypnotherapist, and I learned what the controller is, how I took on the programs. And then it was like this bolt of lightning hit me, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm actually not stupid. I'm highly intelligent. So when you're doing hypnosis, you're doing hypnotherapy, a lot of it is to uncover those beliefs that we have about ourselves, that we have about the world, how we operate, about other people. And you're looking to recognize those things to change them into a more adult conscious belief system. So there is that part of your mind that's called the critical mind. And that is where we use that to process those things out. It's questioning ourselves. So when I'm doing hypnosis, therapy, figuring it that I'll just listen to me in the background. So when I'm working with my clients, I teach them how to hypnotize themselves. And in that process, they do certain things that are the tools that I have in my book, and they're having a big problem. It's hard to work through them. Then I do hypnosis with them and I help them out with that. I got it. Thanks. When we're doing hypnosis, it's depending on everybody because some people I do hypnosis more often than others. When you're a hypnotherapist, you're going down into that subconscious part of the mind and you're able to assist the person in restructuring that belief system so that, like, some people have issues with like eating sugar as an example, a lot of addictions. That's very useful. In the conscious part of your mind, which is like 5%, the unconscious is 95% for most people. In that 5%, that's where you have something like willpower, also reason, logic, deduction, and the almighty intentional choice. So people who have addiction problems or who have self-worth problems, all these different things, the what I call the kid in the back seat, the ego, is running a program. And as much as we, the adult in the front seat, want to change that program, like for instance, a sugar addiction, there's that 5% of willpower battling the 95% of the belief around what sugar does. It's comfort, it's this, it's that, I gotta have it. And so when you're doing hypnotherapy, the practitioner is able to help you to see the beliefs around sugar, what that means for you, and change the program here. So it's not 95% running. You're moving that 95 now. You've got it up here where it's a new program and you're not in that sugar addiction. All that makes sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. And I love how you explained it because I think there's a misconception about or just hypnosis. When people hear that, they think we're layering things onto the mind, right? Because, the parlor trick about when I snap my fingers, you're going to, I don't know, croak like a chicken or something, right? Just these really weird images that we see when we think about hypnosis. But what you're saying is actually we're layering back things and we're uncovering the truth and we're taking programming away so you can discover who essentially you are as a person.
That's why I teach people how to hypnotize themselves. I had a woman years ago, and it was when I was first a hypnotherapist, and she came in and she'd had a really bad day, and she was like, "Oh, you're going to have to hypnotize me today." And I was like, "Oh, no, no, no. I am not going to be that person that you're relying on. You're going to do it." So I have really been adamant about you've got to own your own power to change these beliefs. And I want people to really understand we're in hypnosis all the time. When you're watching TV, you're in hypnosis. When we're listening to certain music, and especially that's why when I've got kids that come in that are like teenagers and they're in a full out depression, one of the first things that I do, what are you listening to? Because when you're listening to music, there's a beat that's going. and it's hypnotic, and they do this on purpose. And then they start putting in these lyrics, and sometimes the lyrics are literally, you want to, do things to yourself. So one of the first things that I'll do is I'll have them pay attention and recognize these things and create that awareness. Another one of them is horror movies. Believe it or not, you're in hypnosis when you're watching that. So a lot of times if people are paying attention, you'll notice, like, first thing in the morning before you wake up after you've watched a horror movie or something disturbing like that, you'll have what I call venting dreams. So that's that part of your mind, the critical mind, that's looking to sort out those negatives that we take in that are scary. So you really want to pay attention to how much of the time people are in hypnosis and you're at the effect of somebody else owning your mind. And I say this fairly often, but if you're in fear about something, if you're afraid of something and there's an anger attached to it, there's a high probability that you've taken on an unconscious program that somebody else has, you know, given you on a level. So all these things are important to recognize, because when people say hypnosis, there is that stage hypnosis where I don't do that at all. I would never do that personally. When I'm doing hypnosis with my clients, it's almost like a meditation. In fact, on my website, I have a deep sleep meditation and a calm is a choice meditation that are both very much like how I do hypnosis. So you can reprogram your mind being very aware in hypnosis and be in the process of it with the practitioner. You don't have to like be out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can vouch for what you just said about fear and anger together, or any very heavy emotion. Sometimes it's good to I call it, get rattled, right? Someone challenge your beliefs like, is that you? Is that really is that your value? Or is that somebody else's value? And that question alone sometimes can shake you a little bit.
Well, there's an interesting thing about this. I call them fear feelings, right? And at the bottom of it is depression, which is literally suppression of feelings. And then grief is right next door. And grief is just one of those things we have to go through, and it's a process. Then you go into rage and anger, guilt, shame, remorse. Anxiety is huge for people right now. And then over on the other side, there's what I call your power. And at the very bottom of that is calm. So when we're calm, instead of being over here where we can't think clearly, we're in deep in that unconscious. When we're calm, we're creating an avenue within our mind, those neural pathways, where we're able to think more clearly. So anger is one of those interesting ones. And I think this is at the moment right now, because there are so many avenues for anger. When you're angry and in the fear feelings, false evidence appearing real, that kind of anger is a victim anger. So you're angry because you feel like somebody is doing something to you. You're at the effect of something else. When you're in your power anger, that's what I call a righteous anger. Anger is one of those things when you're being righteous about it. Like, we all have reasons to be righteously angry in this moment. And that is where it's like putting a big ass propeller on the back, and you're using that anger to propel you forward into whatever the constructive thing is that you want to do. So if you're finding yourself angry and you feel like you're at the effect of somebody, you want to step back and you want to look at, is this a manipulation? And to be clear, people don't want to be manipulated, but on a level, many of us, almost all of us, have been in some way, shape, or form. And so when you're using that righteous anger, that helps you to see it more clearly. So you're not unconsciously unconscious. You're thinking about it with the critical thinking. What, when, where, why, how? Is this true kind of things? And you're reasoning it with logic, deduction. And you're changing that to, all right, I don't want to be rolling around unconscious with this. What am I going to do about it? And that's the big difference with it.
Do you experience it sometimes where people are resistant to what you do because being manipulated might be comfort?
Yeah. Yeah, actually. And it is a comfort zone until it's not. You
Mm,
know, people will be in that comfort until they realize this is going to sound weird. It's like I had a woman one time that I was working with, and we were looking. Her husband had brought her in because he wanted her to see certain things. And she came in, and between he and I, were able to help her see these things that were hard for her to recognize. And there was a part of it where when she got it, she looked at me and she goes, "Wow, I feel like a ostrich that's had its head in the sand." And I was like, well, interesting that you put it that way because when your head is in the sand, you can't see and you're blind, you're unaware, but your body is out and vulnerable. So it's only comfort until something happens where it's not comfortable anymore. So I get it. And there is a certain comfort in being in in that zone. I used to be in the comfort zone, so I know this one really well.
right.
And then it was a moment of creating awareness, and it is a challenge to go through that awareness. But then when you're on the other side of it and you're making your conscious choices and you are living your life in a lot more freedom, then it's worth that time and effort. But yeah, people many times it's like people don't want to do the work. Like I have had people come to me and as a hypnotherapist, they think they're coming in and I'm just going to snap my little fingers. And it's like, I'm not that kind of hypnotherapist. It's like,
Hmm.
that's why I created the book. And that's why I put it on, YouTube. So for those people that had many clients, it's like, Audrey, I'm not going to read your book. Okay. All right, fine then. I'll make it a video and you can just listen to it and I'll show you the pictures on the other screen. And, it's the kind of thing where they don't want to do it until they start seeing the results of how their lives get better. Then they jump full board into it. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Yeah. Yeah. It's, it can be very, it's work. It just, that's what it is. You have to do the work yourself. You're there, but like you said, you're not going, you don't have to magic wand or snapping your fingers and, oh, poof, all your problems are gone. you know?
Well, if
Um,
I'm changing everything, it doesn't change on the inside. It's weird that way. I think people have this idea if you go to a therapist, the therapist is going to fix them. I think that is one of those, like, I know people that have gone to a therapist for years and they just at a point rely on the therapist to tell them what to do on a level, or they keep just venting out the same thing to the therapist and they're not changing the underlying program, the underlying problem of things. So when we say it's work, that's why I put it into this format and I made it a game. It's still a
mhm.
process. But Nick, even like when my clients first come in, I give them what I used to call a workbook. And so it shows this in a very basic form. And then I tape the first session so they understand what anxiety is, what it's doing in their body, and literally how to stop it and start transforming that anxiety into something else. So when I created the workbook, it comes with this. And Nick said, you have to change that name of your workbook and make it a playbook. So we
Okay.
take out the idea of it being work as much as I want you to think of it like this. And this is where my mind goes.
Yeah.
When we all went to school, we learned stuff that it's like, do we ever use it? If we
Mhm.
had gone to school and we had learned what critical thinking is, and we had learned how to communicate with each other, if we'd learned how to own our thoughts and not just let them go down the hill and we're sliding around in rage or a panic attack, that would have changed everything. So, like when I was working in the rehabs, I would have many people that would say, you know what, if I'd learned this when I was a kid, I wouldn't have landed here. So instead of thinking of it like work, you're thinking of it like you've got your kid in the back seat. That's the one that has all those feelings. That's the one that's got the anger, the anxiety, the worry, the stress. So you're thinking of it as I'm being the adult now, and I get to teach him or her, like I got little Audie in the back seat, I get to teach her how to be conscious, how to be confident, how to be, living a life that is valuable rather than some of the stuff she used to be doing.
Hmm. Yeah. Do you think that people, once they, I don't know if I can use the word awaken, but once they become more conscious, right? They are in a little bit more in their control of who they really are. Is that a ongoing practice that needs to be okay? Yeah.
Like for the rest of your life. Like I've
Hmm.
been doing this for a long time and I still have my moments where she creeps in and there's like, this is something else. And it's a continual unlayering. But instead of it being a big deal, it's less and less and less. And the period, instead of you're living in a depression for a long time or you're angry for weeks or that was angry for 8 years, and you're shortening those times. So instead of it being like this crazy roller coaster, you start leveling it out and it's more time up here and then there's a dip. So it's not that where you're feeling powerless a lot of the time. You have tools to circumvent whatever the challenge is.
Hmm.
Just the communication alone is huge. 0.9% of the clients that come into my office have never learned how to constructively communicate. So just owning that piece and being able to speak your word and not suppress those kind of feelings, like you're angry with somebody, is an example. Happens all the time. I'm so angry with so and so. And it's like, well, what did you say to them? Nothing. Well, why didn't you say anything? Well, because they're going to get angry with me. It's like,
Hmm.
so they don't know, and you're the one that's holding on to the anger. So the person's just going to do it again, and you're going to get more angry until it turns into whatever it turns into. So I
Hmm.
created that constructive communication because using that, you're able to let anybody know what's going on in a way that is effective, it's constructive, it's respectful, compassionate, considerate. And your kid in the back seat, instead of you telling them to shut up, you're allowing them to own their word. That piece alone, if kids were able to learn that and we all knew that as adults, that's a huge thing.
Yeah. That is on our dinner table. That's the number one subject is any form of communication. And with teenagers, it can be a little tricky. But a lot of times when I ask them about, well, how do you feel about this? They say, I don't know. And what do you mean you don't know? Well, I don't know. So they don't have that. They need to stop too and go inside themselves and find out, what am I actually feeling? That's where the problem starts. It's not only that they cannot articulate it, they really don't know in what category their feelings go. And it doesn't matter what any subject we had on this podcast so far, communication always comes up. It always comes up. It boils down to it. It's fascinating.
An interesting one about kids with their feelings. Yes, they don't know what their feelings are because of the conditioning that we have had, whether they're watching their kid movies, all the
Mm-hmm.
different avenues of that, or, all the different ways that they have learned to not be in their feelings or not understand them. But an example of being ignorant around their feelings is I had somebody very close to me who kept telling me that they were anxious. And they're so anxious. And they were a young adult teenager at the time. And they just kept being anxious. And finally, I asked, and I said, what are you so anxious about? And they were like, well, da 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 da. And I looked at them and I was like, well, that's not anxious. That's suppressed anger. So I find that in that lack of communication, that they're angry. And when you're suppressing anger, sometimes it can look like, you know, anxiety. So they're literally unaware of what those feelings are in their body. So when I'm working with people, one of the first things, and in this first session, I'm explaining to them that the heart is literally the most important part of us. It produces electromagnetic energy all day, every second. And when it's in the vibration of those fear feelings, it's very different from being in your power feelings. So when you're having, like, for instance, anxiety is huge, and a like a lot of people are experiencing anxiety. So what's happening is there's this rush of emotion that's in the anxiety. So the electromagnetic energy that is talking to the brain. So the brain is saying, oh my gosh, we've got anxiety and we're going to have to produce a lot of adrenaline, a lot of cortisol, a lot of stress hormones. And then energetically, we go way down into the fight, flight, freeze in the controller, and that way subconscious part of the mind. And you're not thinking clearly, but then also energetically, normally our energy is grounded and centered and focused, and we're calm. And there is this balance of us. But when we go into anxiety, the heart is talking to 50 trillion intelligent cells. And those cells are all going, hey, we got to do something. So the energy leaves the center, it goes to the extremities, and we go into that fight, or freeze. And interestingly enough, when we're over there, that brain chemistry, and this is a big one for a lot of people when it comes to understanding those feelings, when we're living here for an extended period of time, the brain is producing those chemicals like adrenaline, cortisol, and those stress hormones. So we're putting ourselves out of whack as far as the physiology of the body. So all of those things combined, it gets to the point where people are living over here for a long time, and it creates a certain element of, I want to say, like, numbness. It's like I don't even know how to feel anymore because I'm just so internally out of whack. So there are supplements that I recommend for people, and it's always important to do your own research on this. But when there's an excess of adrenaline, by the way, when we have these things going on, when you're looking at the car analogy, it's like we're the driver of the car. We have put the car in park, and then the foot is massively on the gas. So the other thing that it's doing internally in our systems, it's creating where the pistons, what are the adrenals in our body, it creates where people are tired a lot of the time because those things, the adrenals, are going and going and going. So looking into a cortisol manager, that is a supplement that you can take that helps to manage those high cortisol levels. A product called 5-HTP, and that helps to build up the dopamine and serotonin. And then for the adrenals, you want to get some kind of adrenal support to help build those back up again. And that is another part of all of this. So when the teenagers, because they're the ones that have a lot of stress going on, I see it all the time, when they're able to balance the internal stuff, and then they're also doing the process of all the things that are in that chapter where you have the tools, then they start switching over time, and it's a process.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have lived this. I have had burnout and adrenal fatigue and all the things, and it's one of those spiral things where you just have to cling on to something to stop it. It doesn't matter where you start, just do something to at least get a grip on it. So that's really good advice. And I love that what you just said in your book. There's a toolbox that you help people build and utilize around this, because it is, I see this all the time, what you said, people go to counseling, people go to therapy, but that's not a to-do list. That's not a practical thing. So what you're doing seems like that's then the next step. You know, we just don't talk about it. We need to do something about it. And people don't know. They don't know, well, what do I do about it?
Right, right. And it's truly a process. And the reason why I put everything together the way I put it together, I was a mess myself when my first daughter was young. And I took her to the therapist, and it's like, she's a mess. And her therapist was like, yeah, it's because you're a mess. And it was like, I went to her for a year and read every book I could find, and it was just a struggle. I was such a mess. This woman looks at me at one point. She says, Audrey, you don't have any boundaries. And I looked at her and I was like, boundaries? What's that? Is it like a fence? Like ridiculously unconscious, like very unconscious. And it took me, honestly, to be honest, it took me about 10 years to straighten out. So when I put the tools together in this, I put them together because if I had done things the way that I share it with my clients, then it would have, instead of been 10 years, it would have been probably a good year. And these tools here for transformation. So the very first tool is being aware and doing this fear into power tool. The fear into power tool is it's where you start recognizing I'm anxious. So when you're in the game board, it's that part where you're stopping the car, the very first part of the game board, and you're in highway hypnosis. So you're stopping the car and you're recognizing I'm angry. And for most people, when you're talking, these people don't know how they're feeling. I can't even express to you how many times when I'm explaining this to my clients, it's like, so you start paying attention to how you're feeling in your body. And I'll tell them, where do you feel anxiety in your body? And they're like, I don't even know. So we have to think about it. And sometimes they really have to think about it. And they're like, well, I guess this happens. Sometimes it's in the pit of the stomach. Sometimes it's the heart. Sometimes it's in the head. Everybody's different in the way that the heart is talking to those 50 trillion cells. So the first step is to start paying attention to your body and to take the time to recognize, well, I feel anger here. I feel sadness here. I feel anxiety there. All these different avenues of where we're feeling in the body. So once you have that awareness, that's that first box where you're in highway hypnosis. So instead of just being unconsciously rolling down the hill to hell, all right, I've got anger going on. So then you move up to the next box, and there's a process there where you're stopping the car at the top of the hill and you're questioning things. You're getting yourself into the critical thinking and you're looking at, like, for instance, anxiety. It's this box here. So with anxiety, you're asking yourself the question, is this true? A lot of times what anxiety actually is when we're here in this moment and we're imagining something that might happen. Much of the time, I used to be very anxious about the health of my body. Oh my gosh, what if I get cancer? What if I get into a car accident? What if? And there's a part of it when you're stopping the car, you're questioning yourself. You're, instead of rolling around in the victimization loop in the unconscious, you're bringing yourself to that critical thinking and you're going, all right, let's look at this a minute. Let's get calm and let's communicate with ourselves. And is this true? No, it's not happening. It hasn't happened. So then there's other steps. What do you do about that? Once you have done that box, then you're moving over and you're being more conscious and you're in process. And that's where the tools are. The fear into power tool, I'm anxious. So that's the part of the communication. I'll give you an example of this one. I had anxiety around moving a few years ago and I wasn't paying attention. And we ended up moving to the wrong place because I wasn't thinking clearly either. So I'm having to move again a year later. And this time it was to the right place, but I caught myself. I'm anxious. What's going on here? And so I did that tool. You're writing down literally, I'm anxious. You're not judging it. You're having compassion because it's, the ego, the kid in the backseat. She's the one that's anxious. So I'm looking at, why would I be anxious right now? So first thing you're doing is you're looking at the 0 to 8. What happened during that time? Well, looking at my mother, long story short, she moved 5 times 1 year with babies. I'm thinking she might have been an anxiety riddled mess. Then I started looking at the second tool, my timeline, and anxiety around moving, anxiety around moving. When I moved from Florida out here, whoa, couldn't sleep at night. I was so anxious. So then I'm recognizing all of that. And it's like, this isn't me. This is mom's program that I took on. So then the intention is, because the intention leads the way always. On the power side, I'm writing, I am moving with ease and grace. And I'm literally having a conversation with Audie, and I'm letting her know it's like, hey, that was mom's program that we took on. And I'm the adult in the driver's seat now, and you're okay. And we're going to be moving, and it's going to be fine. It's a pain in the butt to move, but we're doing it, and we're going to do it with ease and grace. And instantly, the anxiety was gone. So it's a process of looking at these things. Then, when you're holding that intention and you're having that conversation with the person who's holding the anxiety, and you're letting them know, I got this, I'm driving, and we got the first driver, then that is the nurturing for her. That's the changing of the program. That's literally the rewiring of the neural pathways where you're rolling that program. That's the changing of the program. So it's me hypnotizing myself. That's what that looks like. And while I'm at it, I'll tell another quick example of that. I had moved, and one of my daughters, I went into her room and she's changing in front of an open window. And I lost my mind on her. And she was like, you're overreacting. And I had to think about it afterwards, and I realized I'm overreacting. So I sat down the next day. And when it is an experience, there's a part where you're sitting down, or you're taking that time to allow for, what's this experience? Why did I just act like a lunatic? So out of nowhere, a memory came to me. As a young girl, I had in my room taken off my clothes, and I got into bed and I was turning out my light, and I heard a noise at the window. And I look, and there's a guy staring at me. I was terrified, like to the point where you just can't get anything of sound out of your mouth. Well, I finally did. And my stepfather got his shotgun and he went out there, and he didn't find the guy, but he found the brick that he put under my window to stand on, and how parents were way back then. He came back in and he was like, he's gone now, go to sleep. I was like, locked and loaded. You know, your heart has a little brain in it, a little grouping of neurons, and it holds on to these things. So then when I had that understanding, oh, that's what that was. Intention. I'm telling her I'm the one now to nurture that young version of her, Audie, and I'm telling her, look, that was terrifying, and we were safe. And we're safe now. You're safe. And our daughter is safe. So there is that part where we're letting go of that trauma. And we're also what we need to do in the moment. And I'm telling my daughter, you need to be more safe, you know?
Yeah.
So that's how that process looks. So whenever anything comes up, you're owning the adult in the front seat, you're trusting the first driver, and you're dealing with the kid in the back seat.
And like what you said, sometimes it's easier to look at a situation afterwards instead of in the situation when all the emotions are extremely heightened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible at that moment because, you know, the car's in park and you got your foot on the gas.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some misconceptions that you come across with people when they hear hypnotherapy that you usually have to clear up?
I think one of the biggest ones is that the hypnotherapist is going to fix them. And I don't know any therapist that fixes anybody. I don't fix people. That's why I
Right.
put everything together the way I've put it together. It's like you own your power to fix yourself. It's
Mhm.
like when that woman came into my office and she was having such a bad day. You need to fix this. So when I'm working with my clients, I very much let them know this is for you to do or don't. It's your choice. And sometimes it takes them a while to get into that. And you know, when you're doing hypnotherapy and you're working with somebody, I personally think that it's like, for instance, I was just talking with somebody who has a very big issue of going off the rails really fast. They get angry like they can't control it. And for somebody like that, hypnotherapy is great because it's a very dark place in the controller, in the mind. So when this person's telling me that they do this, there is that part of it where I'm looking this up for you to show you. This is the controller. And sometimes we have issues that are way down here. And it's like if you were to imagine it's an iceberg and it's way under there. It's really hard to see. I don't know, but I just lose my shit. And I am so guilty and remorseful and shameful afterwards. And it's not something I want to be doing. I just go into this automatic thing. That's very common. And that's when hypnotherapy comes into effect, because you want to have somebody help you to change that, going from zero to whatever to making it where you're able to moderate it somewhere. When a person is doing hypnosis, we're able to assist them in however it looks for them individually, changing that instant fight response or flight response to something that is a little softer, and then a little softer, so that they can actually get to the point where they're processing that out. So hypnotherapy is good for that. And I will do that with people who can't kind of go there so quick. And that's what I think hypnotherapy is excellent for, because a lot of us are conditioned, and you see it all the time. If you're looking at any kind of social media, there's a lot of people out there that go from, whatever to rage in a second. Excuse me, my cat has come to visit us.
Of course.
Cat. At any rate, so hypnotherapy, it's for those kind of things where it's like, or, there's like no willpower whatsoever. And people who have addiction issues, it's really, really good for that, because they've got to have some assistance to get to the point of being able to reason and logic things out. Did that answer that?
It does. It does. And I think it's just a common misconception, because we have seen, again, I want to call it the parlor tricks with people on stage that do that, right? And that's not.
Well, I think we're also in a moment in society where, I'm going to say this in a way that is, there's the powers that be. And there has been over, especially, I want to say like the last 30, 40 years. I'm 60, almost 30. So I've seen a lot in my lifetime of how things have shifted. And like, one of my daughters went to school to be a psychologist. And I kept asking her, it's like, what are you learning? And they're learning a lot about the problem. And people have come to me many, many times who have been diagnosed bipolar, borderline, ADHD, all of these different things. And many times I've had people where they come in, and rather than doing the work, doing the process on ourselves, they've gone to a psychiatrist who have anxiety, let's put you on meds. I had a client one, and her and I were working together while she was still on her meds. She was having a moment that was really hard where she was suicidal. And so she went to the psychiatrist. She's like, I'm feeling suicidal. And he's like, all right, well, let's up your meds. And she was furious. So it was really good, because she was able to go back to him afterwards and really own her word. And she's no longer suicidal. She's actually thriving. So it's important that we understand, when people have had all of these diagnoses and there's all this mental disorder and all of these things that are going on, and the therapist is going to fix it, or the meds are going to fix it. It's like, you don't own the power yourself to do that.
Yep.
There's never that empowerment going on. So I think it's important for people to understand, yes, sometimes there is a physiological disorder, But a lot of times, and I'm going to say this part because I think it's in my book. It's called The Crash. I think this is, in this moment in time, wildly common. So when you're thinking of the car analogy, and this is, I think, if I were to say there's a big deal going on right now, this would be it. So everybody's driving along in their car, right? And there's these moments where there's like a crash. And if we actually crash our car, it's like it gets dinged up and it's hard to roll in. And normally, if that happens, you would take your car to the mechanic and the mechanic would fix it and you're rolling along just fine. We have all had a crash recently with everything that's gone on. And I'll back it up. For many people, there's been a crash in their 0 to 8 of some sort. And I deal with this all the time. So when there is these big moments, and there can be big crashes or just subtle continual crashes, what happens is, if we don't address what's going on, address the feelings, then what happens is the car gets hard to roll in. And it's like it's uncomfortable to be in. So what happens is, many people take another car. I don't want to be in this car. This is too painful. So I'm just going to work all the time because I don't have association with emotions with work. I just go and work. I do my work. I'm fine with work. But the other car, the kid in the back seat's still there. You haven't stopped it. Another car that I see a fair amount of is, I'll just keep doing it right. I'll just keep doing it. I'll just make it better. I'll take the I'm perfect car and I'll just keep realigning and realigning. Another car is the addiction car. And that one's an interesting one because we don't think of certain things as addictions, but this is an addiction. And people get lost in scrolling for hours. A lot of the kids are having a real issue with that one. So I don't want to be in the day-to-day stuff of life car because I don't even know how to be with those emotions. So I'm going to be over here and I'll just take this car. So what happens is, when we're not in one car, when we're not present, then I have a lot of people that come to me. It's like, I can't focus. I'm having a really hard time just focusing on what it is that I need to do. Or they are, that car's still rolling and there's only so much that they can do before that car starts creaking along and making a disturbance.
Yeah.
There's an interesting story that I have about this. It was actually somebody that I know very well, and that it's called dissociative behavior. It's dissociation. So you're not present, you're checked out. And it was one of my daughters, who doesn't mind me telling this story. She had a moment when she was very young where she decided she wanted to be a boy. And I was like, okay. For all of her elementary school years, she was a little boy. She dressed like a boy, she looked like a boy, and she wanted to be a boy. But she kept telling me the whole time, it's like, Mom, I don't feel like I'm here. I don't feel present. And then she also was struggling and feeling like there was a possibility that she had autism or something because she couldn't focus in school. She was just struggling. And she just kept telling me this. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. This was before I became a therapist. So then one day she came to me and she said, I figured out the word for it. It's solipsism. I was like, solipsism? By this point, I'm a therapist. So I call a friend of mine who's a psychotherapist, and it's like, my kid's saying that she has solipsism. What the heck is this? And she said, Audrey, that's a form of derealism. It's a form of dissociation, and it's usually caused by trauma, hitting the car. And I, in my mind, started laughing, and I was like, trauma? This kid has had the best life. And then I was like, oh, except for that time in kindergarten. Oh, when she decided she wanted to be a boy. Oh, you don't mess with boys. So she took a little boy car as a protective measure. And then when I was able to go to her and say, this is what happened, this is what you did, and we were able to have her riding in the one car, she went from not focusing and feeling, all of those feelings that she was feeling to thriving. She's doing very, very well. So it's important to understand. Sometimes people come to me and they're like, oh, I've been diagnosed bipolar. It's like, I think you might be dissociative. Let's put you back together again. Or ADHD, or a lot of these other things. But the psychologists, they don't tell you these things because, it's like, let's just have a drug to fix it.
Yeah.
Which doesn't fix it, because a lot of people who are taking anti-anxiety drugs are still very anxious.
I could not agree more. It's sidetracking and, focusing somewhere else so I don't have to sit with myself, so I don't have to spend time with myself, so I don't have to feel my feelings. And then we come from the other side and I'm not saying that, medicine has its purpose and its place,
Absolutely.
but we cannot slap a Band-Aid on it all the time and not, like what you said, deal with the garbage that we need to deal with, that excavating of all the programming, all the trauma, all the things. Is it comfortable? No. But does it need to come out and be processed and be dealt with so we can be healthy, functioning human beings? Yes. But people don't want to do it.
But the funny part about it is they're so unconsciously uncomfortable that they think it's going to be uncomfortable to get comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is, it's like you're already uncomfortable. You're already
Yeah.
sad. You're already angry.
Yeah.
So when you're taking the time to do it in the way that I'm suggesting, it's not like you have to go and relive the trauma. Sometimes people think that going to a therapist means you have to sit there and, oh my God, you got to investigate. Oh my God, it's going to be so painful.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times I'm laughing with my clients. We're looking at it with a new, and I didn't say this earlier, but it's important. The controller is just that thing. It's the controller. On top of the controller are the 3 buttons that make everything happen. So your intention leads the way. A lot of people don't even have an intention.
Mm-hmm.
So your intention is, I just want to be happier or calmer. Attention is where it will show you, are you on your path or not? So when you can pay attention to those feelings, there's a part of it where you realize, well, wait a minute, I'm not owning my intention with these feelings, so I've got to do something about it. Third button is perception. So when you're checking that perception makes your reality. So when you're looking at your perception of everything, and then you're making those adjustments, then you changing your programs. And just on a quick side note, there is a lot of benefit to meds, but if you read a book by a guy named Dr. Daniel Amen, Change Your
Mm-hmm.
Brain, Change Your Life, he talks about the brain, and here's like the basal ganglia is where you've got that part where anxiety lives. So when you're taking a med, it's a physiological thing, you're slowing down that part of the brain, but it's designed to slow down that part of the brain so that you are able to do the process of what he calls getting rid of the ants, automatic negative thoughts. In my book, it's subconscious destructive thoughts. So when you're able to then reprogram those, you're weaning yourself back off of the meds, not relying on the meds, because your body becomes acclimated to the meds and you're still experiencing whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I just bought his book, The 7 Types of ADHD. And that's a great example. I just realized which one, because I have ADHD, but sometimes I have symptoms that look like ADHD symptoms, but they're actually not. They are me making an unconscious choice of, well, I'm starting 3 different things at the house because none of them is satisfying to me. I don't enjoy any of them. So I'm trying to sidetrack myself so I don't have to do that thing. And then I slap an ADHD label on it. And I had to really point on my own nose with that and say, no, it's not an ADHD thing. You just don't want to do the thing.
Right.
But was I comfortable? No.
But you know what makes it uncomfortable? The judgment.
Yes.
The judgment is, it's across the board. That's the thing that makes it uncomfortable. So when you can move the judgment over to compassion, and there's a part of it where it's like, well, this isn't me. This is what I've learned up to this point. So it's her and me. So now I'm going to take the wheel. I'm going to have compassion for the programs that we took on about what that looks like. It's not a big deal because I'm in the choice point right now. I get to realign it. So when you're taking out the judgment and you're changing the perception, that's everything. So you're looking at it like I catch myself doing stuff all the time. And it's like, oh, there she is again, Audie in the back seat. And I'm not judging it because none of us are perfect. But there's this whole thing that we should be, you should be doing things right all the time, every single time. And then when we try to apologize, well, you did it. And so people hold you to, you're not perfect. And it's like, are you? So when you're able to change these perceptions and you're able to own, all right, I screwed up or I'm doing something silly. I'm got my ADHD going. I mean, it's just, you're changing the judgment of it, which will keep you over here, and you're bringing it over to compassion. So then you can change the program. You can see it more clearly. Judgment keeps it under the surface. Compassion brings it to the awareness, and you're able to process it out.
Yeah. I do believe that that's the biggest programming we have in our culture is shame and guilt and judgment. Because, that keeps people in line because it's a horrible emotion to feel shame. It's so dirty almost, it hurts and it's very uncomfortable and it can keep someone in place very easily.
I'm going to tell you, when I have my clients come in, almost always, every single person, there is something that there is shame, guilt, remorse, all those things, and especially people who have been in addiction. And when I was working in the rehabs in Malibu, it was a big deal. So important for everybody to know this piece because shame, guilt, remorse are three of the big ones that will keep the program rolling. It just keeps it rolling. So when you're in the second tool, the timeline, and you're in that choice point, there's a part of it where you're looking at, I did this because of my unconscious programming, my unconscious, whatever that thing was. And there's a lot of it where it's like, would you do it again? Absolutely not. But I did it and it was horrible. So what you're doing is you're looking at the timeline and you're saying, I did this back here with the consciousness that I had at the time. And it was an experience only. For the most part, for most people, it's not like we killed somebody. People come in and they have their traumas that they did. And I'll ask them, I said, well, did you go to jail? No. Well, if you had gone to jail, how long would you have been in jail? I don't know, maybe 2 months. All right. Well, that was 5 years ago. You've had yourself in jail for 5 years. So now you be in the choice point and you're letting it go, understanding the program, understanding and gaining the wisdom of what you have learned from it and that you're never going to do it again. So you're letting go of the guilt, the shame, the remorse, and you're owning a new choice point. We all get that. Everybody gets to realign. So when you're doing it yourself and you're telling that kid in the back seat, look, I screwed up bad back there. I don't ever tell anybody what I did because I don't want to repeat it again. I don't want to say it. You don't ever have to tell somebody what you did back there. But I was a mess. And now in the choice point, there's no guilt, there's no shame, there's no remorse. That was Audrey under the influence of whatever the program was. Then when you wake up and you wake up and you wake up and you be this person, there's no shame, there's no guilt, there's no remorse, literally no feelings on those things. So interestingly enough, on Sunday, there's going to be a full moon. When you're in this choice point now, it's a good idea to write down these things that still have the feelings attached to it that look like that. So if you're feeling shame, guilt, remorse, any of those uncomfortable feelings about something that you have done, you're writing it down. And then on the full moon, you're taking it and burning it and saying, it's done. It's released. It's back to that nothingness. And if there are any consequences from it, maybe you do apologize and say, back there, I was very unconscious and I did whatever that was. I truly, from the depths of my heart, apologize, which is different from I'm sorry. Apologize means I get it. I hurt you. I did whatever the thing was. And I wish it never happened. It did. So I want you to know it'll never happen again. And can we hit a reset? So you're doing the action that might go with it, whatever that looks like. But carrying those, it's like a backpack on your back. And it's like you're going to do it again in some way, shape, or form unless you dump the trunk of the car and let go of that backpack.
Absolutely. Our mutual friend who brought us together said something to me years ago, and it really did. That tiny sentence changed my perspective a little bit. She said to me, people do their best in the situation and the moment that they're in all the time. And it really hit me like, yeah, just because I think that this person could have done better, but I'm not in their shoes. I don't know what situation. And like you said, the programming, the stuff that's weighing us down, not nobody, but most people don't choose to do something bad in the moment. It is they do the best that they can in the moment. Yeah.
Right. When I'm talking about those controllers on top of or the buttons on top of the controller, intention is the first one, and it's always about what's our intention. But the other part of it, and this makes that easier, when you're looking at anybody else's behavior and you're asking yourself the question, was it their intention to hurt me? Almost always it's not. It's their kid in the back seat. They're not thinking clearly. They're acting out. They're in their unconscious program that they're rolling. So when you are dealing with them and you're asking yourself that question, and then rather the judgment, you're adding compassion to it, it can very much shift the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. Self-compassion.
It is. It truly is.
Wow. What a subject, Audrey. This is so fun. Was there anything that we haven't covered today that you would like to add?
I think we're in such an interesting moment in time, and I'm watching this division of people. It's like you've got people over here and then wildly over here. Like, I don't say much, but I watch, especially like on Facebook, and I'm looking at all of this anger, rage, and the things that are happening that people are saying. That one thing I do, I watch a lot of different kinds of news, like a wide variety. And I watch what actually happens, like in Congress. I'll watch those talks. I'll watch just various things. And I think it's important for people to understand we're in a moment now where AI is huge. And there's a really good book by Greg Braden that just came out. I'm thinking of the title of it. It's his most recent book, and it's about AI. It's important to realize as you're looking at various kinds of news, if it's something that is creating an element of anger within you or rage, and you feel like you're the victim to something, many times it's not 100% accurate. Like I'll watch things that people are saying and it's like, that's not what was said. I watched the speech, but they'll take a little portion of the speech, or they'll take and they'll manipulate with AI what somebody looks like, what somebody might have said. And and it's not just politicians. It's all people, a lot of different kinds of ways that we get information. So it's super important to step back when you're looking at anything and check your own emotions around it. And if it's something that's causing that anger, go into that critical thinking. And this is what I'm about to say, maybe a little challenging. But if there's something that you just don't want to watch because it's like, that's going to make you really, really angry, maybe allowing yourself to look at things with a new perception. And I'm telling you, this is a nonpartisan thing. It's not a political thing. But we're in a moment right now where there is a lot that is happening. There is a huge shift in consciousness. There's an energetic shift that's happening that's a very, very big deal right now. So when we're able to, I'll tell you the analogy that goes with this. It's like, and you'll appreciate this because you're from Florida or you're in Florida. When there is a hurricane that's coming, it's like, it's a lot and it's stirring everything. It's like we're all in a very big hurricane right now. In the eye of the hurricane, that's where the birds fly because it's calm. So the birds will get in that eye of the hurricane and they'll just stay in there and then they end up in Florida with you guys.
Right.
When you're in the midst of all of this hurricane literally needs to happen because there's been a lot that's been going on that does need to get brought to the surface. There's a lot of things within all of our systems. Bruce Lipton said this back in 2008. He wrote the book and came out in 2009. And he said in there that all of our systems are no longer sustainable. And when he said that at the time, I was like, he said they need to collapse and a new system put in its place. So I believe that's what we are in the process of right now. And yes, it is tumultuous. It is scary. It is concerning for a lot of people in a lot of ways, but it's a necessary thing because for somebody like me that's my age, I've watched the downhill trajectory over a lot of decades now. And I've seen things that are like just our health system alone. I mean, the amount of people that I talk to that can't get the services they need because the insurance isn't approving it. And the people that I've watched who are in the insurance that say, I want to approve it, but I can't because that's my job. Yeah. Just that alone is a big deal. So when we're in the hurricane and you're in the eye of the storm, that I am, you're literally wanting to keep your hands and your feet in your vehicle at all times and trust, have faith in the first driver. I'm okay. I'm still okay. Keep checking yourself. I'm going to be okay as this storm goes on around me. Don't reach your little hand out and start grabbing onto any trauma, or whatever. You keep your hands and your feet in the vehicle at all times and keep checking, I'm okay. And it's a process right now. And it's important because when we're calm, we're going to think more clearly. We're going to be able to manage rolling through this time and get to the end of the storm. And it's an important thing to do right now.
Yes, absolutely. Not reacting to the programming that's happening at all times, it never stops. But to, like what you said, be consciously in the here and now and your reality that you're in and think clearly in that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the show, Audrey. This was such a pleasure. It is so great to hear your wisdom and, your decades of experience with this and how you walk the talk and what you're doing is so important because I really do think that there is not enough people like you out there who make this tangible for people to be the coach on someone's side and give them earthly things to do, right? To make themselves a better person and be themselves. So it was fantastic listening to you and how you work. And I will link everything in the show notes, your book, your website, your YouTube channel, all the things so people can actually find you.
Thank you.
And work with you. Yeah.
Thank you. They can listen to the book on that YouTube channel. There's a playlist where I read the book. So if anybody's interested, or you can buy it through my website. Yeah.
Awesome. That's fantastic.
It's a pleasure. You make this so easy.
It is. It's always fun when it's just a natural conversation and we just, like, what do they call that in human design? Like, the manifestor or whatever. And it's just initiating each other. So that was great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you everybody for listening. I hope I see you next week again for a new episode and take care.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope you enjoyed. You can give it a thumbs up, you can give it a review, you can share it with somebody you think might resonate with this. Have a great day. See you next time.